It was struggling hitting prospects yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about some struggling pitching prospects on the call-up. I'm Arm Layton. He's Jack McMullen. The plan was to do both yesterday. Of course, on brand, go a little bit long. Want to end up giving enough time to the pitchers, so now they get their own episode. It also gave us a little bit more time for some more context, and fortunately, Rhett Lowder came out and threw really well and kind of the first solid double-A start for him. So we're going to talk about that, but also talk about the struggles as well, tell the whole story there, and then also just catch up a little bit on some things that stood out yesterday on the field, just because there were some hitting performances that really stood out to me before we get into these arms, Jack. But I think we're going to do the same thing, right? Kind of the low, medium, high concern. And I slept on it, and I've decided that I am a high concern on Spencer Jones. That's what
he just had a walk-off on what was it, on Tuesday or Wednesday? But like, hey, one walk-off single does not eliminate the concern. I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you.
So the other funny thing though is I feel like when we do these, players immediately go off afterwards. So it's either good or bad depending on how concerned we were. Of course, it's just always good for the player. But I felt like, especially after yesterday's episode, there was a handful of players that we had just discussed that ended up having nice games. So that's always nice to see, and it's always exciting. But Rhett Lowder being one of them. Some of the names we're going to go through: Rhett Lowder, Robbie Snelling, Connor Phillips, Dylan Lesko, Mick Abel, Anthony Solometo, and Will Warren, among a couple others. Real quick before we get into that, though, Jack, just a couple standout performances yesterday. Trey Cabbage homered twice. Just really wanted to get into that.
Is he a space cowboy? Where is he?
Yes, he is a space cowboy. Also, Jared Cerna. So remember when I made the joke where I'm like, he might never have another multi-home run game in his entire professional career.
Did he do it again?
He did it again.
So
I don't know if you can like find this. No, I know for a fact we can't find this stat, but I want the lowest 90th percentile exit velocity guy with like a pair of multi-home run games. He's got to be him.
Oh, that's on Baseball Reference. Let me go get that right now.
Just sort that. That's through the splits, right?
Yeah, easy. No, that's Jack. That's just in game logs. Now, I mean, so like Mookie's a 30 homer threat. Like, but the thing that jumps out to me about Mookie Betts is Mookie Betts, I think, is tied for the most 3 homer games in Major League history. So like you would never expect it. He's up there with like Ruth and Sosa and guys like that, and then it's Mookie Betts. I'm like, interesting. And my reasoning there is I think Mookie just feels it come off the bat right once in a given night. And then he's like, oh, I'm just going to do that again the next day.
Yeah.
And that might be Jared Cerna.
Jared Cerna like might be good. Like he is good, but I think he might be even better than maybe we thought going into the year. And I just wanted to like hit on that briefly because he is hitting the ball way harder though too. So that is a part of it. But I love what you mentioned about just like there might just be days where Cerna's got it, and when he's got it, like he's elevating and it's carrying out. I think he's just one of those guys that can backspin the ball too. If you look at kind of the spray charts, gets a lot of carry. Guy's slugging 470. He's 5'7". He's slugging 470. You don't do that by accident. Again, kind of tying into I need to just start doing these episodes with the Baseball America park factors readily available. Do you happen to remember where Hudson Valley lines up on that one?
No shot, but I can find that within the next 45 seconds.
Yeah, but because the 2 home run game was in Hudson Valley, and then the 3 home run game was actually in Wilmington. So but beyond that, like he's just swinging it well overall, and it's not just those 2 little blips. Like it's been a pretty well-rounded offensive season for him. A Yankees prospect. I don't know if we had clarified that, but like lower chase rates, decent contact rates. He's walking at a 15% clip, striking out at an 18% clip, and now he's hitting the ball harder and elevating and all these things. Like Cerna might be a nice little infield piece, and they've been playing him exclusively at shortstop almost. Of course, the occasional game at second, so I shouldn't say exclusively, but I'd say predominantly at shortstop. 95% of his starts have been at shortstop. So I have to do some defensive dive there, but if he's playing a decent short and he's starting to swing it like this, like Cerna might be a piece for the Yankees here, which means inevitably he might be a nice, complimentary or tertiary trade piece in their mega package that they'll put out, coming into the deadline.
Yeah. 2 ballparks that he hit him. Where were they again?
Home at Hudson Valley and then Wilmington.
So Hudson Valley as a home run park factor is 79, Wilmington has a home run park factor of 70. So Wilmington is the most pitcher-friendly ballpark in the South Atlantic League by park factor, and he hit 3 homers there. And his home ballpark is bottom 5 in the South Atlantic League in park factor.
This sport is so wonderful, man.
I love it. I hate it. I love it.
I hate it and love it. That's what makes this podcast so like difficult sometimes, because I feel like no matter what analysis we do and no matter how deep we dive into the numbers and mechanics, shit can just go crazy and go awry, and it doesn't even matter because it's baseball, and especially minor league baseball. There's so many different things and different outcomes that can happen, and so much malleability to what's going on with these players and their profiles and who they are. But a couple other I just wanted to talk about real quick. I know you saw the Aiden Miller home run, Phillies prospect. We're working on the top 100 update right now, and the goal is to get that out either by the end of this week, probably leaning towards Monday now. You know, and I did the thing where I tweeted June 1st, and then it's going to be not June 1st, and people are going to say
June 1's a Saturday. That's okay.
Oh, it was. Why did I even do that? I never look at the calendar, dude. I just think of like days and just put it out there. But Monday, we're going to do it on Monday. It'll be out on Monday. So I'm going to spend most of my weekend doing. Aiden Miller, you saw that home run he hit, and it sounded, you mentioned it, like it sounded harder because of the broadcast a little bit, but also just like his impact. Like he's a guy that just the ball comes off the bat differently, and we talk about that a lot. It's a little bit of a baseball cliche, but it's also true. When there's just certain guys that it may not be 115 off the bat, but the way that he impacts the baseball, it's just a different crack. And it's because it's just so consistently on the sweet spot of the bat. And it seemed like he did that again yesterday with a absolute rocket. I think he got out at like 106, 107, but he crushed it. Was it a grand slam? Or was it
I think so. Yeah. And it was weird because like the video was glitching and then the audio had a big pop at the same time. And I was like, it looked like it came off the bat at 125 miles.
Yeah, I checked that one immediately too. But I mean, he still hit it hard. We're talking about a 19-year-old who's hitting 106, 107 mile an hour home runs that are getting out in a hurry, and that put his OPS over 1,000 now in low A. I feel like we're probably due to get this kid out of Clearwater and get him to high A relatively soon. Yeah, I'd imagine. I don't think he has much more to prove down there.
You know what I think my next passion project is? I'm going to start a GoFundMe, like a bunch of unique GoFundMes, or, this could be like Just Baseball's charitable arm. Get every minor league team an adequate center field camera. Like it's okay with the rest of them. Like it's fine because I'll just trust like the announcer to tell me where the ball's going. But for me, like just watching games, it's so hard with some of these broadcasts with like a bad low res or glitchy center field camera. Like I'm spoiled in Indy. I think we've got one of the better broadcasts in minor league baseball. But like just visually, I want to see the pitches and I want to see the swings from that center field camera. Everything else can stay the same. But like I just want to start that big GoFundMe to get every minor league team an appropriate center field camera.
You know what the crazy part is? You wouldn't have to raise that much money.
No,
because it's not expensive and it's not difficult. And that's why like I understand the limitations that come with minor league baseball financially. And I'm very aware of that. And I try to be understanding of that. But when it comes to the broadcast side, like we talked about it, if our Cape Cod League broadcasts were better in terms of camera angles than a lot of these, then they can probably make it work. And it's just more of like we don't care. There's no point. And to be honest, dude, when I get that high home camera, I'm not watching. I will wait until I get different angles available and I'll check in later. It's a waste of my time to watch a high, literally, unless it's like a very good friend playing, and I really want to see how they do. And even then, it gets pretty difficult. I'd almost just rather look at the live game feed. I just have no interest in even watching from that viewpoint.
Dude, like I didn't get to watch Tugboat throw at home because like the camera feed was down the third base line pointed straight down. You don't know what Tugboat's pitches are doing. Like I want to know how that fastball plays, and you just can't do that unless you go to Lynchburg, Virginia, and you sit right behind home plate.
Yeah, we'll just wait. He's going to be up soon.
He's already up in Lake County, and he was good in his high A debut.
Yeah, and he's going to keep flying up the ranks. I'm telling you. The one other guy I wanted to mention real quick though is Xavier Isaac. Mm-hmm. He's not slowing down. I think his OPS is over 1,200 since I think the last 20 games. I'll pull that up in the meantime right now, but Rays prospect that he's going to climb even more on our top 100 list when we update it. But Last 20 games for him, 379, 474, 788 slash line to 1262 OPS, 15% walk rate, 22% K rate. He's also 5 for 5 in the stolen base department, 6 home runs, and 14 extra base hits.
Dang.
This guy is just clicking on a different level. He's hitting the ball as hard as just about anybody in the minor leagues, and he's starting to really spray it all over the field and lock in from the perspective of just making consistent contact, controlling his ABs. There was a triple he hit the other day, and I think it was eye-opening to how athletic he is and how he can motor. And I think as is the 5 for 5 in the stolen bases in his last 20 games, like this guy is an athlete. And I want to keep reminding people that he is an athlete. He's probably due for a AA promotion soon. Yeah. And man, if he starts or if he keeps doing what he's doing now there, I think you're going to start to really see him fly up as consensus, one of the better just hitters only, one of the better hitters in the minor leagues.
He looks better and better physically each time I see a clip of him. And like he's growing into a physical specimen type person where he's going to be that Hulk at first base. And it's like, wow, you move way better than you should. And you mentioned the triple, like a guy that looks like that should not be, getting triples mentioned like, oh, it's just something that happens. But that's who he is. And the Rays, man, like they've got something special cooking down there. And I mean, Montgomery, it's going to sync up with Carson Williams, Xavier Isaac, Chandler Simpson. Who else is in that lineup? Is Ledbetter in that lineup in AA yet? Is Braden Taylor in that lineup?
Braden Taylor will be soon. He's swinging it well.
And Dominic Keegan is in Montgomery right now too, man. I mean, like they've got some shit cooking right now. So credit to the Rays for getting great again, man. It's the Rays. Expect anything different?
Nope, of course not. And that's why it's fun to just see them start to piece it together now. And even when we were starting to look at the lineups and saying, hey, these aren't like the best Rays, organizational lineups, all of a sudden they start to come together, like you just mentioned. A couple other just quick notes. We saw Cade Horton come out in the first, or like in the beginning of the second inning. Lat
tightness. He's going to Chicago for imaging. PCA also recalled, by the way. So a busy day in Iowa.
Yeah. Who would PCA be replacing?
Luis Vasquez.
Now we're back to the PCA playing twice a week thing.
I think so. Yeah,
because Tauchman's too good. Like Tauchman's great. That's the problem. But it's such a crappy spot for PCA.
Yeah,
he needs AVs. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
Loperfido getting absolutely boned.
Killed.
Jose Abreu comes back and Loperfido goes back down to AAA. I understand that he was striking out a little bit, but he was extremely productive while playing center field and the corner outfield spots. And instead now, because of sunk cost fallacy, we're going to have Jose Abreu come back, clog a spot as a platoon first baseman who only faces lefties, and short end platoon where you convince yourself that he's still the guy that can hit lefties. He doesn't. He is in the final year of Albert Pujols' role, and he's not going to do it nearly as well, not even close to as well. And now Joey Loperfido's in AAA Sugarland for no reason, for a team that's kind of on life support with their season. I know they've been playing a lot better lately, but just scored 1 run the other night against the Mariners in like 10 innings.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. I could go on and on about that, but you know how that stuff goes. And I think we might see a similar scenario potentially. We'll see. I don't want to get them, in trouble before they actually do it, but I've been thinking about the Yankees and what they may do with Luis Gil when Garrett Cole comes back. We might get a quote unquote innings management situation over there. That wouldn't shock me either.
I'm going to pitch something on tomorrow's Just Baseball show that may convince you otherwise.
I hope so. I think I'm getting too jaded, to be honest. I am. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm going to throw it at you too. Like this is me hating the game again. Owen Murphy, TJ, we haven't talked about that yet. Owen Murphy got cut. So the Braves left-hander who was killing this year and looked like one of those rapid risers and, probably a borderline top 100 prospect. If you,
he would have been on.
There you go.
He would have been on.
Owen Murphy was cut. It was Keith Meister that did it.
Yeah.
Tommy John?
Yeah.
So he's done for, now a year and a half because it's May. He's probably back at the end of next year for a handful of starts. This game sucks, man. Like
Yeah, this
it's
is when it
brutal.
sucks.
Brutal.
This is when it really sucks. He would have probably made it, man. And we kind of alluded to it, I think, in the last show or 2 shows ago that it's probably going to go in this direction with Murphy, but don't really like to talk about those things until it's for sure and in a report and everything. And what sucks is he was a tick harder this year with the fastball, and I think that might be a part of it. That always seems to play in a little bit. But that tick harder was why that fastball was dominating. He looked fantastic. He was one of our breakout pitching prospects coming into the year, and he was breaking out. And I think that kind of fastball would have absolutely been the type that could allow him to fly through the minor leagues. What we were talking about, it similar characteristics of Bryce Miller and Christian Javier, and those are the guys that you can fast track a little bit more. Are they going to dominate forever? No, they're going to have to develop a little bit more at the big league level. But guys with that fastball can get big league outs way quicker than some of these other arms that have to develop and become more well-rounded pitchers and things like that. Last note before we get into the struggling pitchers, though, on a more positive side with the Braves, Schwellenbach gets the opportunity, and I thought he did great overall. It was 5 innings, a 3-run ball. But considering this guy just made the jump up from double, I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach, all things considered, I thought was as advertised and as you could hope. The actual line against the Nats, 5 innings, 5 hits, 1 home run was kind of where the damage was done, but 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 Ks, threw 88 pitches and gave him 5 innings. Yeah. What else could you ask for from a guy that's making the leap up from Double-A? I think if he gave them this every 5th day, and I know that you're hoping it gets a little bit better, and you don't walk a guy or you don't hit a guy, and you get that down to 2 runs, 5 innings of 2 to 3 run ball with 5 Ks every 5th day. Right now, with where the Braves are at pitching wise and how dire things are, and now even AJ Smith-Shawver on the shelf, like, you take that every single 5th day. And I think this is a guy that's going to develop more and more at the big league level. He's not a finished product at all. Remember, not converted, but a 2-way player, and was a good infielder. He was a good hitter. I was going through some of the offensive video at Nebraska. Like, he was a good player. He hasn't really focused on the mound specifically that much up until being a professional. And now we're kind of seeing him develop and develop and develop. I think this guy will continue to get better at the big league level. But in the meantime, it looks like he might be able to give him a chance every 5th day.
No, this is so much better than the tandem of Ray Kerr and Darius Vines. And
I would agree.
Yeah, like that gets you through 7, but like Schwellenbach, I'd rather have him get you through 5, and then Kerr throws the back 2 or Vines throws the back 3. Like, that's cool with me. This felt like the responsible fast track. Strider was okay because he was a college arm, but like AJ, and I never want to doubt what the Atlanta Braves are doing, because the Atlanta Braves are masterclassing Major League Baseball at this point. And like, this year hasn't really been the case, but they've been dealt a season-ending injury to Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr. at this point. But, they knew what they were doing with Strider. With AJ, it totally felt rushed, and you could see that it felt rushed last year. This guy makes sense to rush. And I was very happy with what I saw from Schwellenbach last night. Problem is, he just ran into the buzzsaw that is Mackenzie Gore, who at 24 years old is turning the corner, and he punched out 10 in Atlanta. He's awesome. Like, again, I keep waffling, and I might think that he stinks next week, but right now, dude, like, I'm Mackenzie Gore's biggest fan. I might order a jersey.
Our wonderful staff at Just Baseball, I'm gonna send something in there and just be like, who wants to write about Mackenzie Gore? I need someone to jump on that ASAP, because I want to read someone's dive. By the way, if you are looking for dives into prospects and also just everything going on in Major League Baseball, like, I couldn't be more proud of where our editorial is at justbaseball.com. Consecutive months of largest traffic that we've ever had. Ryan Finkelstein, our managing editor, and Leo Morgenstern, also assistant editor there. Like, they've been doing unreal stuff to churn out, I think, some of the best content out. And obviously I'm biased, but really thoughtful stuff, really, I think, informative stuff. And I'm learning, I'm keeping up with baseball even better now with our own website, which is like a dream come true for me. So I'm really proud of what's going on there. And I implore those who listen and enjoy these kind of conversations to check out editorial, because it's a lot of the same kind of stuff on the big league scale and all over. And we're going to continue to to lean into that. But I will mandate. I don't mandate much. I will mandate a Mackenzie Gore dive with the way that he is throwing right now, man. It's what we had always kind of hoped for, and hopefully it continues. But regardless, just seeing those flashes, I think are really exciting.
100%.
You ready to talk about some less exciting arms right now and give our level of concern? And I think you'll see a trend with pitching. It's very, I think it's a lot more cut and dry, where like you can look at the data, you can watch outings, and you can just say, hey, this is a lot more concerning. Whereas with hitters, it could be a slight mechanical change that then changes all the batted ball data. So that's where it's a lot different. Yes, you can make that argument with pitching that you can make a mechanical adjustment, but usually that's a lot more encompassing.
Yep.
There's going to be, I think, more comfortably high or low level of concern with these pitchers. When I say that, like, I feel more confident in my assessment of how concerned I am, I think is the best way to say it.
No, I think so, because I like you're saying, I think it's incredibly cut and dry what the issues are with some of these guys. And some it's like, oh, he's young, he'll figure it out. But, like that's just more, I don't want to say it's wishful thinking, but it's more wishful thinking than a lot of other, situations with hitters where like that, you can actually lean back on, he's 19, he's going to be fine. He's 20, he's going to be fine. With pitchers, you see traces, and like there are guys, I mean, we saw Julio Urias be major league caliber at what, a young 19 years old. Like, pitchers are a different beast, and I'm excited to really get into this. But I've got a pair of Reds off the top, Rhett Lowder and Connor Phillips, differing situations. Rhett Lowder, the first round pick of the Reds last year in Double-A, put together his best start in Double-A. It was 4 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, punched out 7, walked 1. But on the year in Double-A, after he was really good in High A, 4 starts with Chattanooga, 15 1/3, 16 earned runs, so the ERA over 9, 25 hits allowed. Opponents are hitting 379 against him in his first 4 AAA or first 4 Double-A starts. They were hitting 400 in their first 3, but that good outing, and again 5 hits in 4 innings, dropped the clip to 379 in terms of a batting average against. I am a low medium, and the only reason that medium creeps in is because we've known that he needs to execute, and he just was not executing in his first 3 starts in Double-A. Execution is everything with him. And the thing that separated Skeens and Lowder last year in the draft, and Skeens and Dolander, and frankly, I think maybe even Dolander and Lowder, was Lowder was executing all the time. Dolander wasn't. He was getting burned. Skeens pretty much is, but even when he wasn't getting burned because it was 100. And now he's got that splinker at 95. So Skeens, his mistakes are too good to be barreled. Dolander was making too many mistakes, and Lowder wasn't making any mistakes, which made Lowder pitcher 2. And we just saw Lowder's first mistakes at the pro level, and that's what happened in his first 3 Double-A starts. Execution's important, which is why the medium creeps in, but that's why I'm low medium.
Yeah, I'm going to go low, but I agree with everything you're saying. I just think he's going to be able to do that. If he doesn't for a few more starts, then, I think it would be that low medium, because for me, I think there's a lot of things that go into this. I think he's still trying to figure out how that arsenal plays at the professional level, especially at Double-A. Some of the things that worked for him in college and in High A may not work in Double-A in terms of what you can get away with. The thing that stood out to me the most, and I had execution is just kind of my number one thing when I have my notes, going into this, but the slider still gets plenty of chase, and it's a plus pitch, but it can get big on him sometimes. And so, when it gets a little bit bigger and you leave it over the middle, guys, they're going to hit that. Even if it's a great pitch, guys in Double-A will hit good sliders that are hanging. And that's, I think, what we're seeing more. Whereas in High A, he would hang some sliders, but because of the movement profile, guys would just swing through it or spit on it. The sinker too. So the 4-seam fastball is not a great pitch. It's pretty dead zone-ish, and he throws the 2 different fastballs, but it plays well, similar to some of the other guys that we talk about on a subdued level. But we talk about Sandy Alcantara, where he started to unlock on a different level. I always love referencing this. Is he used to just be sinker, changeup, slider, everything down, because his 4-seam fastball never played well. But then once he was doing all of that, and he's like, you know what? If I mix in a 4-seam fastball, 15% of the time at the top of the zone, even if it's dead zone, it's going to get swings and misses. Of course, that's at 99, but still, I think the same thing holds true at 95 when you have all of the other pitches that Lowder has. The problem is he keeps missing up with the sinker. And I was looking at the heat maps on that. Way too many elevated sinkers, and those are actually getting hit harder than his four-seamer. His four-seamer has actually been all right. So I think the issue with him is there's a redundancy of like you're elevating your sinker and you're elevating the four-seamer. And if a guy just fouled off a four-seamer at the top and then you give him a sinker, he's going to crush that pitch. You know, if he just missed under the four-seamer and you missed up with the sinker, that's going to be a problem. So for me, it just seems more like location, execution, kind of missing up a little bit too much. And he's a guy that's got to be wearing out the bottom of the zone. And I think the same thing can be said with his changeup, which he continues to kind of leave upwards a little bit too, which we've seen be a phenomenal pitch for him.
Yeah. You know, it's a lot like four-seamers that play well at the top of the zone. You think about like Verlander. The only time Verlander gets burned is when he starts to tug that fastball down a little bit towards the heart of the plate. It's the opposite with a sinker. And you think about the cement mixer sliders where, you know, the slider is best when executed to the glove hand side. So a righty going, you know, from in to out on a right-handed bat. Sometimes like a backed up slider can, you know, do something weird and be good. But you don't want to be in the middle of that because that's where you get the cement mixer. Same can be said about a sinker. A sinker is really good at the bottom of the zone. But the further it creeps up, the more it just kind of looks like a shit fastball.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, you know, that's where you really get hit hard. I agree with you. The same can be said about a four-seamer at 95. I think the cutoff is probably 91, 92, where like a taste-breaking four-seam fastball doesn't work if it's 91, 92. No. But we're not talking about Lowder like he's Kyle Hendricks. Like Rhett Lowder throws 95. So that four-seam can absolutely play for him.
100%. So I'll go low, but you know, if this continues, it'll definitely go up to medium. This is more of me leaning on the track record of execution and things like that. And, you know, working with a new catcher, working with some, you know, just a different environment, especially as he's a guy that needs to be particular. He's not going to have the caliber of stuff it's good stuff, but it's not, you're not going to get away with as much as some of the names that you mentioned, right? Even a Chase Dolander and some of the other arms that maybe even were drafted after him. Not going to get away with as much, but he's not a top prospect because of what he can get away with. He's a top prospect because of what he can execute and do with what he does have, which is still pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Next guy. Oh God. Yeah.
I got altitude sickness from how high my level of concern is. Like it's sky high.
It couldn't be higher. It could not be higher. It's the highest of concern of anybody we will discuss on either of the shows.
Connor Phillips at this point has made 10 starts in AAA, 41 2/3. He leads all of baseball in walks issued, all of professional baseball. Connor Phillips has walked 39 in 41 2/3. I think Aaron Ashby is behind him in Nashville, who's coming off of shoulder surgery. And then Tristan McKenzie, who's throwing with a limp noodle right now, is third with like 34 walks issued. But Connor Phillips has an 8.42 ERA. He lowered it from like 9 to 8.42. Opponents are hitting 302 against him, and he's walked 39 in 41 2/3. I don't really think we need to dive into this. Like, this is just a start from hell for him. And, you know, I hope he figures something out right now. But, you know, like when do you start pushing him to the bullpen in Louisville? Like, should be happening now.
I don't even think you do that. I think you push him to the IL. I'm not kidding. I think it's that stark of a difference because you look at the TrackMan data, dude, and like this is so different that I even shot it out to a couple scouts. Said, "Have you seen this much of a change?" And the response was, "It almost looks like a guy that was using sticky and then doesn't have it anymore."
Man.
Like that's how stark it was. And that's not accusing him of doing
no.
Like, that is how dramatic it is. Because again, I've been looking at these things for several years now, but I don't know how long TrackMan's been around, but you know, I wanted to ask some people that have been looking at this for 8-10 years, like, and really maybe they have an example of somebody that may have had this stark of a difference. And the feedback I got was this was as much as that they've really ever seen in a while. And just to contextualize what those differences are, his release height is like 0.3 feet higher, which like that will sometimes just happen naturally with guys as maybe they try to find a new cue to get more like stacked into their backside or to, stay more vertical, whatever it is. And usually that's okay because that'll help them gain more vert or achieve something else. There's always a little bit of a push and pull. But not only does he gain 0.3 feet of release height, so it's a little bit higher and a decent bit higher, he's lost 2.5 inches of induced vertical break.
Oh.
And the higher you go with your release, the easier it is to induce vertical break. So if you're going higher with your release and losing vert, something's up. I don't want to speculate, but it almost seems like something's not right with him physically. Like you mentioned Tristan McKenzie kind of throwing through something. Like I almost wonder, and again, I hate speculating on this, but that's just how stark the differences are. And I'd rather speculate on this than to just say Connor Phillips sucks. Like he's a very talented pitcher. He was a top 100 guy going into the year. When you look at the fastball quality at its peak last year and the slider quality, yes, he had command issues and reliever risk. That's fine. But this was a fastball that was getting 19 inches of vert from a 5.8 release height at 96 to 98 with a flat VA, like all of the things that you love to see. And now it's all gone. Now it's like as dead zone-ish and like stock of a fastball as you're going to find. It's the same velocity, but just for it to be such a different release and for him to just get so much less ride from it, it's pretty shocking. And I don't know if he created a bad habit. I don't know if something's wrong, but I've never quite seen such a dramatic shift in the pitch data. And then I think now you're seeing the result is zero trust of his stuff, maybe even worse mechanics or worse, command because he wasn't throwing like this last year. So it's a totally different release. And then when it's even in the zone, he's getting crushed. This is a guy that needs to be able to erase hitters' counts by going to his fastball and getting whiff. Now he's not getting whiff on the fastball. I think he needs to strip it down. And I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if they'll do it, but I would consider just like a Phantom IL stint here.
Or a development list. Like that's kind of the beauty of the development list. Man, it's just crazy.
Isn't that weird?
I don't know.
Swinging strike rate on the fastball so last year, and this is between the big leagues and AAA. So it should, that's in the big leagues, you'd imagine it'd be a little bit lower too. So this it should be higher considering that he's only thrown in AAA this year. 13% swinging strike rate on the four seamer last year between the two levels. So far this year, 6.6. So it's just fluttering in there for hitters who are hitting 364 with the 1200 OPS against the fastball.
Dude,
I think they should figure something out and stop wheeling him out there. I don't think it's fair to him even at this point to keep wheeling him out there.
No, like
it was totally shifted and adjusted.
It was like borderline. I don't want to say like sad, but it was demoralizing to kind of call his start against Indy in Louisville. Like I was just watching something that wasn't a thing last year. And it's like, what happened? I'm sitting there like in the inning break saying, what's happened? And, you paint a good picture of what's happened. So yeah, I hope they figure it out. And I kind of want to move off the bat right now.
Yeah, no, I know. I would just say the last thing is just supreme talent. And that's why it's so tough to watch, but just turned 23, has all the time in the world. Just let's hope they get him right. And let's hope that he finds it because can't teach a lot of the stuff that he is able to do.
Yeah. Two Padres now I want to get into. Let's start with Robbie Snelling, who's in AA at the moment. 8 starts, 38 innings. Snelling is a 4.26 ERA. He's walked 16 in 38 innings, and opponents are hitting 268 against him. Couple of numbers in there that jump out to me. Snelling should never have opponents hitting near 270 against him, but that is the Texas League. I can, immediately kind of do the knee jerk there. The other thing is 16 walks in 38 innings. That's not really his jam. This could just be shaking off early season rust. And he, enters a stretch of, 5-6 starts where Snelling is walking 1 or 0 every start. But the calling card with Snelling last year was overpowering within the strike zone. And it feels like he's been missing the strike zone a decent bit. And when he's in the strike zone, he's getting hit, which is kind of like, I don't know, bizarre.
I think he's nibbling because of what you just said. He's getting hit in the zone. His fastball is down. I think from the average of last year is down about a tick and change. But if you look at where he was at the end of last year, it's down about 2 ticks. And that's weird because he's so athletic. And we talked about the workload and how he handled it last year, but maybe they pushed him too far. And maybe he's just not rebounding quite as well as he should have. We're talking about a high school tired through.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's tired or just his body's not totally recovered from that workload last year. I mean, what was it? 107 innings or something like that. 108 if you include the postseason. Like that's a lot for a high school arm in his first professional year. I can pull it up right quick right now. It is 107 2/3 if you include the postseason. So, I mean, that's a lot of innings for a high school guy. I don't know if that explains it, but the fastball averaged 93 last year through that entire stretch. And so far this season, he's averaging about 92, but the last couple starts has been 91. And really, there's one start where I don't know if it was a hot gun or what, where he averaged 94. And I think that might be tugging up the averages on the year. But the first couple starts, he was 92, 93 in Double-A. And guess what he did in those first couple starts? He was really solid. It was 9 innings, 10 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, and that one of those starts was in Amarillo. Then he starts creeping down to the 91 range, and it doesn't look as good. And I don't think he's trusting the stuff as much. This is a guy that doesn't have a single pitch that jumps off of the page. He's got, a couple really impressive secondaries in terms of the way that he commands them. And I think they're above average pitches that play closer to plus because of his pitchability. And the fastball has some good characteristics that allow it to play above average, but characteristics are much more valuable at 93 than they are at 91. So I think you're seeing him not trust the fastball as much. And then, the residual effects of that from inheriting base runners and then guys just being, a little bit more on the fastball. It's kind of crazy when you see a strike rate of 67% on the curveball, 65% on the changeup, and then just 62% on the fastball. It just really doesn't feel like he's trusting it.
Yeah. So I think I'm at like a low medium. I think low. He's such a young guy still. You forget because of how physically built he is. You'd think he's 21, 22. He's not. He's what, a young 20?
He's a young 20. He'll be 20 the entire year. I'm going to go low as well here. He dominated last year and pitched well in Double-A and already has a few starts under his belt where he threw well. He's hitting a snag right now where I think he might be a little bit fatigued. He might just be struggling a little bit. Who knows? It's the first time in his professional career that's really happened. I think you can look at the development of the changeup, which he talked about with us going into the season, and you can say that pitch actually looks better this year. I just think it's a little bit of trusting the stuff, a little bit of execution, and a little bit of just diminished stuff at this point. He's 20, coming off of the most encompassing year of his career pitching wise. And also he's been a guy that was always playing multiple sports and now has just been more focused on this. So I think he could just be feeling it a little bit physically. I wonder if they give him a little bit of a reprieve, maybe where they some shorter spurt starts so that he can kind of just get back a little bit and just get back to feeling fresher. I know it's early in the season, but these guys never really stop. Especially someone like Robbie Snelling. After talking to him, I guarantee he was working his butt off all off season too. Right. So there's not really that much of a difference besides just the physical exertion on the arm. And I still think he was probably doing a bunch of stuff regardless. I'll go higher on the low, but it's higher than maybe some of the other guys, like a Rhett Lowder, slightly higher, I think. But still, it's in the low realm for me.
So you're a low medium, okay? Dylan Lesko, I'm actually lower than Snelling. I'm very low on Lesko, guy that's coming off at Tommy John. Again, we're about 2 years removed from Tommy John. And, I know you had a great conversation with Lesko coming into the year. Lesko threw 8 starts in high A, 29 innings. Opponents are hitting $160 against him. So they're not beating him. He's beating himself. He's walked 30 in 29 innings. And that's resulted in an ERA in the mid-6s. The ERA doesn't look good. The walks look really bad. But when this guy's in the strike zone, he's not being touched. And that's why I'm low. Just find the strike zone. And that may just be a matter of time post TJ.
Yeah, I was hoping he would find it quicker
Yeah.
this year, because he talked about it even on the show where he said, most people talk about that 2-year mark, and that's where you start to really feel like yourself again. And I feel like myself again. And, I totally believe that. And there's some things that he was doing on the mound already this year that he looks like he feels like the best version of himself so far. But you also still see him fighting himself mechanically. And I don't know if there's some things that, he was working through in the offseason that he's still trying to actualize in games. But when you have a strike rate on fastballs below 50%, it's probably not good.
Yeah.
That's definitely a problem. But to your point, the fastball characteristics are crazy. And when it is in the zone, no one's touching it. 31% in zone whiff rate on the fastball is crazy. His changeup is diabolical. No one's touching that. He's actually landing that at a strike at a 60% clip. His changeup is highest strike rate offering, which is the craziest part. And no one can hit it. But then the cutter / slider and the curveball just have not really been there from a consistency standpoint either. That's really all it is. It's a 53% strike rate. What's wild though, Jack, is like he was celebrated out of high school as one of the better strike throwers in the class, and also just one of the more mechanically sound guys that that folks had seen in a while. I think that's where it's interesting. And I guess there's just some more maybe residual effects of the Tommy John. It affects everybody else differently. You never know who it affects and how. But it just seems like there's still residual effects command wise, because when you go back and look at this guy's high school stuff, like the delivery was so smooth, and I don't see anything like, what do you see with the mechanics? I don't, it doesn't look like a guy that should be struggling to find the zone that much, right? Like it is interesting.
He looks clean. He looks in rhythm and good. Like things just change when a doc pops your elbow open occasionally. So like, I think it's a temporary thing that we're seeing with Lesko, but the temporary is like not fun because it's so mechanically sound, but like maybe the arm's just kind of dragging behind. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Like he's maybe subconsciously he's, a little timid to kind of really rip it down, which is what he was doing so well when he was drafted. I don't know. It's just like, it's kind of a unique thing. And frankly, like I want to give him a couple months. I want to give him through the All-Star break. And I bet he comes out of the All-Star break, throwing strikes and we're fine. So that's why I'm low.
Last thing I'll mention, and the reason why I stay on the low side here, is it's important to remember how little he's pitched. His senior season was wiped out. So he didn't even get to throw on that stage and really just get the innings there. And then professionally last year, majority of the innings he threw were rehab. And then at the end, it was, okay, I got some innings under my belt. And then this offseason, he found some things that were not right for him at the end of the year that he wanted to adjust. And so this is him now pitching with some of those adjustments, trying to find them in game, I think. So he's 20 years old, but in terms of his like pitching age, I feel like he's still 19 because of the timing of the Tommy John. Like there's not a lot of examples of guys that get it kind of in that high school season. Like I think of Jesus Luzardo as one as well. But there's not a lot of, he got it in the senior season of high school. And he's had some command issues too. And always has. Yeah. But I think that's definitely an important part of it.
100%. All right. We're going to kind of go not rapid fire. We're going to go through the rest of I think 6 pitchers that we have left. But before that, quick break. Okay. Mick Abel. Just give me a word, low, medium, high. Don't give me a reasoning yet, and then I'll lay the groundwork.
High.
Yep. Mick Abel with the Phillies, 8 starts. 37 2/3, a 6.21 ERA. Mick Abel in 37 2/3 has walked 26, and opponents are hitting 280 against him. The source of frustration for Mick Abel with me was he was not getting beat when he was around the strike zone. He just wasn't around the strike zone. Now he's not around the strike zone and he's getting beat in the strike zone. Opponents are hitting 280 against Abel. Like before this, I don't know if you have the clips in front of you, but I think in 2022 and 2023, opponents were hitting like 210 against him, and he was just walking a lot of guys. And that's why the numbers were elevated and the hits came at inopportune times. Now,
192.
There you go, man. So like now the clip's up almost 100 points. It's up 90 points to 280, and he's walked 26 in 37 innings. If you're not going to find the strike zone now, like when's it going to happen? And I know that he's 22 years old at this point, but He's in AAA, and like we've been waiting and we've been waiting and we've been waiting, and the maturation process in the minor leagues like should be close to done by now, and it's just not. And like that's where my concern is. That's why I'm high.
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I agree with all of that, and it's funny because in spring training, he looked like a different guy. You saw some. We talked about some of the release characteristics and some of the things that I thought he may have improved, and it was exciting. I'm like, whoa, look at what he just did to Juan Soto in that at bat, and I know you were really excited on that too. And
Yeah,
and then he comes out this year, and not only is the command, I could understand the command being an issue because of the ABS and things like that. And we're talking about a guy that likes to run the fastball up high, and I know that they've made some adjustments to make the ABS better for pitchers at the top this year. But in general, if you're already an iffy command guy, it's going to be even harder in AAA. I think that's why we still haven't seen Hurston Waldrop up there. I think the Braves want him to really get comfortable with what he's doing right now before they bring him up into that ABS situation there. But what's interesting with Abel is the fastball is actually down a tick. And that's concerning for me, because I think that's concerning for anybody, of course. But I just was not expecting that side of it too, because it looked like it was looser and more relaxed in spring training. It's actually down more than that. Sorry, I did not expect it to be this much, because the last time we checked in, I thought it was like a tick and a half. It's closer to 2.5 ticks on the fastball velo.
huh.
He averaged 96 last year. He's averaging 93.6 this year. Like, that's a big downturn velocity wise, because he's never been like a 20 inches of vert guy. I liked some of the things that we saw. Like I said, I thought there were some better characteristic aspects and things, but so far this year, if you're 2.5 ticks below, like, it's just not going to work when you're a guy that really needs to lean on the fastball. Like, he's a guy that throws the fastball about 50% of the time, and now that pitch is 2.5 ticks worse. That's not going to help. And then I think now not trusting that fastball as much is similar to some of the other conversations we were having. And then you talk about it with sinkers a lot too. I think velocity with sinkers is so important. We talk about it with Brady Singer, where when a sinker starts to, like a fastball, you can maintain characteristics maybe and still get the vert and still be effective a tick or two below. The sinker really starts to lose that life and starts to lose that run when you throw it slower and you don't get those ground balls. Abel likes to throw those two different fastballs, and that sinker just stinks. Like, it's been getting absolutely dismantled because it's slower at 93.4, and guys are hitting 500 against it this year. They're 14 for 28 on pitches that were registered as sinkers.
So sinkers need to be sharp. That's how I view it. And there's a middle ground for that, where if a sinker is, 89, 90, chances are like you can draw the pattern in your head as a hitter when you're waiting for it. It's like, okay, I know that, it's going to kind of loop here and it's going to fall into my barrel here. You can trace the flight of the ball. You need a sinker to dart at the right moment. And that happens in like that. And it's different for different releases, but for Abel, it's probably around 94, 95, where you get that darting experience. For a guy like Quinn Priester, who I've watched very closely, like it wasn't happening at 90, but it's happening at 92, 93. And that's a great thing. But then like you could throw it too hard, like Gratterall and Hicks out of the bullpen, where you're not getting any whiff on it because it's at 102 and it doesn't have time to sink. There's a sweet spot. And it feels like for Abel's release, he's at the tracing point and he's not at the sharp darting point that the sinker should be at.
Yeah, and I don't know, like he never really intentionally threw one before. And so this has been something that I think was a goal to try to stay in the zone more, get some more early contact, not get so deep into every count. But the problem is the command isn't good. And you mentioned like it not as hard. It's not going to be as sharp. 44% of the sinkers that he's thrown would be registered as high pitches, which means it would be like the top half of the zone. So he's trying to throw this new pitch. It's slower than his fastball had been in the past, and he's leaving them all up. So I think that's a big problem with it too. He might just need to scrap that. I like the idea, but he might just need to scrap that, lean into the four-seamer and go with the rest of his arsenal there and just try to throw more strikes. But my concern level is high for sure with him. And I think he just seems like a guy that's experimenting a little bit, on top of the fact that his velocity is down, on top of the fact that the command just does not get any better for him at this point.
Yeah. Next guy here for us is Anthony Solometo with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Solometo was a guy that was on the back end of the top 100 and, lefty, like seemed crafty, but also seemed stuffy enough with a heater at 94, 95. And like that slider was really good, man. Solometo so far this year, not getting any punch outs, 17 Ks, 15 walks in 23 innings. Opponents hitting over 260 against him with an ERA in the low to mid sixes at 6.26. What's going on with Solometo right now? Because I'm trying to figure it out. I'll watch as much Bubba Chandler and Harrington and Solometo as I can. And, Chandler, it just feels like he's missing the zone at points. That's why he struggles when he does. Harrington hasn't struggled yet. Solometo, I'm just I just don't know if you're in that class there, stuff wise. And I don't mean that to disparage Anthony Solometo, but much like Rhett Lowder, the execution is so important. And I feel like he's just not executing right now.
I think he's got the stuff to be in that conversation when he's at 93, because that release point, remember we were talking about it when he was at 93, the way the slider started to play off of that and also the way that he commands it and just the swing and miss that he was getting off of the fastball, off of the slider that was harder. It was impressive.
Yeah.
What you know what his fastball is averaging this year?
It should be 91, right?
88.
No way. That can't be happening.
Just ticked up closer to 90 since his last two outings, or excuse me, just ticked up closer to 89 because of his last two outings. I don't know what's going on. Maybe someone on the Pirates beat has been on this, but I think that the Pirates saw that the velocity was down because he had 3 consecutive outings where pretty much every outing this year, he averaged below 90 miles an hour on the fastball.
Wow. And
then 3 consecutive where he was below 89. So then in the last 2 outings, he's only gone 1 inning. And in the one inning, he averaged 90, which was in 13 pitches. And then the last time out, he averaged 89.7 in 20 pitches. I don't know if they're trying to get him through maybe some dead arm or something. This was also a massive workload for him last year.
Yeah.
And we saw the velocity dip down at the end of the year. We said, who cares? It was a crazy workload for him.
Yeah.
He was tired. He was still competing out there. And, at his peak was averaging 93. If he's anywhere from 91, 92, he'll be fine from that funky release. But at the last 2 starts of the season, it was 89.9, and then it was 88.8. And then just starting the season, it's still 88.8 through the first several starts. So that is concerning, but he's 21. It's a very unique release. It's coming off of a year with all-time workload for him. And they pushed him pretty hard last year. I that's another one where I like letting guys go a little bit, but he threw 110 innings too. And I do wonder, once they started to see that velocity slip at the end of the year, probably made a couple extra starts he didn't need to. Just in my opinion, but also hindsight's 2020. I think it's a medium for me because I'm hoping the velocity comes back, and I'm not a doctor, and we know how good he is.
Yeah.
And I still see a lot of the same good things about him. It's just, how do you throw it at 3-4 miles per hour below what you were throwing before? And that includes the slider too, which of course is going to play better at a mid 80s velocity. Slider was 85. Now it's 83.
Yeah.
Hey, that makes a big difference.
So I was at a medium, but now that I know what I do fastball velo wise, I'm at a medium high. Like that, you can't get away with sitting 88, 89 with your fastball.
No.
Ever.
So
yeah,
I'm medium, but easing towards the medium high.
Got you. Will Warren with the Yankees is our next one. After him, we got 3 more. Warren, 10 starts in AAA, 44 1/3, an ERA at 8.53. Some big outings against him, or big numbers against him, and some blip outings. Opponents are hitting just under 290 against him. And, the strikeout and walk numbers are not notable in either direction as it stands right now. It's kind of par for the course. What jumped out to me is he's getting barreled. And when I've checked in on Warren on Savant, because AAA's got Savant too, and when I've checked in on him, just kind of watching, a Scranton start with whoever he's seeing, it just feels like he throws a lot of uncompetitive pitches over the heart of the plate. and he can get tagged on those. And
Yeah.
those are the kind of pitches that I worry about with a guy like Warren, because Warren is not throwing 98 miles an hour. Like when he leaves his stuff over the heart of the plate, it can result in those big swings. And it's like, oh, that went a long way. I saw with Kiter Montero in Toledo. Like there were some breaking balls that he just left right over to the heart of the plate. And respectfully, they were nothing pitches. And AAA hitters are going to take those a million feet. And that's, I feel like, what's been happening with Will Warren.
No doubt. It's a similar trend here. Death by poorly located sinkers. There's nothing worse that you can do for yourself as a guy that likes to throw heavy stuff at the bottom than to not throw it at the bottom. It's just that simple. And the sinker is getting dismantled. 373, 450, 612 slash line by opponents against that. That's a 1,062 OPS. And to your point, he also is missing the most egregiously with that sinker. So he's just not commanding it well at all. So he's missing up, and then he's just missing period. The slider has been really good for him still, and I think it's a solid pitch, but it seems like he's just not getting ahead of guys, or when he wants to get ahead, it's in a spot where it's a cookie and they can crush it. He's another guy that it's a subdued version of Rhett Lowder. So even more so, he's got to be able to locate and execute. And when he does, he's, cut from that, I think, Bryce Elder cloth where you get so frustrated and all of a sudden you're like, we just grounded out 10 times. It's already the fourth inning. How is this happening? Because he can get you can go through the lineup so quickly. But I think we're also seeing the other side of it, which is when he's not locating at a really good clip, he's going to get absolutely teed off on. And that's what's happening.
So because of that, I'm at the same spot that I am with Lowder. And you know what? Slightly elevated from where I am with Lowder.
More elevated from.
Yeah, so I was low medium with Lowder. I'm medium with Warren because I do think that execution is something that you can find in a start and then just feel right, moving to the next start and the start after that and the start after that. Like, I think he could be just fine once he finds the execution again, but he doesn't. And it is the one integral part of his arsenal is executing multiple pitches, and he's just not doing it right now. So that's why I sit medium.
Yeah, I'm going to go medium, maybe on like a little bit of the higher end of the medium side, but I have a lot of faith in the Yankees, especially with the pitching development side and what they've done and being able to get Warren kind of back to where he was. He looked really good out of the gate this year, and it just comes down to like what you said, just executing. And I think he's shown that he can do that enough in the past. I think he's going to be a pretty streaky pitcher. He's going to be one of those innings eaters that sometimes people are going to be calling for him to be DFA'd, and then other times they're going to be loving how underrated he is in the back of their rotation potentially. Like I think that's the type of player he could end up being if he can find, the positives a bit more.
So you're saying he's Clark Schmidt?
Well, now that's now with Clark Schmidt doing what he's doing.
But they love him. But think about that. Like they love him, and they were calling for him to be DFA'd. Early last year they loved him. Middle of last year they hated him, and then end of last year they loved him. Like, I mean, it's going to be the love-hate thing that Schmidt gets.
Yeah. Schmidt's got louder stuff, but I do think it's that same, like there'll be a little hot and cold on him. I think he ends up getting traded probably though, because Will Warren isn't the kind of guy I feel like they even give a chance to in the Bronx. You always talk about that.
No shot. All right, 3 more guys here. What's up across town with Dom Hamel? And we've talked so much about the Mets starting pitching excellence in the minor leagues at this point this year, and Christian Scott was awesome in Syracuse, and he got up for a big league call-up. Blade Tidwell has been amazing. Jonah Tong has been amazing. McLean has flashed amazing things on the hill. And then you got Hamel, who is supposed to be smack dab in the middle of this conversation. I think Hamel and Vassell kind of fall into tier 2, but Hamel has struggled, man. Dom Hamel in 9 starts with Syracuse, 36 2/3. He's got a whip. And I love whip, and I haven't brought it up yet this episode, but whip walks and hits per innings pitch. Very simple, very cookie cutter. Just under 2, 1.91.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good at all. The good is the great is sub 1. Zebby Matthews, by the way, your minor league leader in whip, walks and hits per innings pitch. But Hamel's got a whip at 191. Opponent's hitting just under 270 against him. 31 walks in 36 2/3. And he's got a 7.36 ERA. What's good with that?
This is the downside with Dom Hamel. We talked about how I love the fastball, and I think that fastball, the shape, the life is enough for in the mid 90s for him to be a reliever at the big league level.
Yeah.
But we also talked about how the secondary command can be really spotty. And I think the secondaries, not only command wise have been spotty, they just haven't been sharp this year. I don't know what's up with that. But they have not been nearly as sharp over the last handful of starts. They were in the beginning, but over the last handful of starts, I don't know if it's because of how many are non-competitive or if there's just something going on with just the way it's coming out of his hand. But right now it just seems like he's a one-trick pony with the fastball and doesn't have a lot of confidence in anything else right now. I love Hamel's fastball, as I just said. So I think that's why he's going to be able to be a big league reliever, and that's why he edged Vassell. I think Vassell has a little bit of a higher floor, but in terms of chance to be a starter, but I think Hamel has a higher floor in terms of chance to be a more impactful big league arm, right? Like what's more valuable, a sixth starter in the big leagues or a seventh inning guy, like probably a seventh inning guy. And I think Hamel can be that or a swing man.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing the bad, which is when he's not commanding that slider / cutter, it just becomes a one pitch thing and hitters just start to ambush the fastball. And I think he's been needing to lean on that more and more over the last few starts and pitching from behind too much.
Got you. Two more names that we got to go over here. Alex Clemmey with the Cleveland Guardians and Carson Whisenhunt with the San Francisco Giants. And we're starting with Clemmey here. Frankly, I haven't been able to take much away from Clemmey at all because it's the tugboat problem. Like there's no center field camera for me to watch Alex Clemmey throw. But from a stat perspective, I was expecting it to look way more like Lesko if he was going to struggle. And it's not looking like Lesko. I was expecting opponents to hit like a $180 against him. And it's like, oh, they can't square anything up. He's punching out the world, but he's also walking the world. He's walking a good bit. He's walked 25 in 31 innings. But he's only punched out 39 in 31 innings. And yeah, like it's 10 per 9. But I was expecting that number in low A with like the lank machine that he is to be closer to like 12 and a half. And like there's a 7.26 ERA against him in his first 9 starts in low A. He's so young, so it's low for me. But I'm just like, I'm wondering if you see anything to indicate why hitters are besting him and not him just beating himself, because he's doing both right now.
Yeah. So the delivery, like I'm going to send you some stuff when we're done. I can get you some good angles so you can nerd out a little bit on the delivery with Clemmey. But like I'm interested to get your thoughts there. I just think there's some violence to it, and it seems really hard to control and sync up.
That's why I liked it, because I thought hitters were going to like their brains were going to be in a pretzel, and the only thing that was going to beat him was him.
I think their brains are in a pretzel when it's anything but the fastball. And I think hitters are just sitting dead red fastball. One, because he's pitching from behind so frequently with the command challenges. And two, the fastball shape isn't good. And that's something that I'm interested to see how they delve into that. Yes, it's funky, but usually when we have these guys, these lefties that throw from this unique slot and are long and lanky, they usually get some decent extension, or they work down lower on the mound than you'd expect. And it's a lower release height with more extension than you usually get from that spot. It's a high release height, and it's below average extension, and it's below average carry. So the fastball at this point is pretty stock. And I think that's why the deception and the funk that we were hoping for to play has not played the way that you would expect. That said, the deception, I think, makes it really hard to differentiate the other pitches out of his hand. And that's why the slider and the changeup have been really good pitches for him. Both, by the way, have a swinging strike rate of 25%, and opponents are hitting below the Mendoza line against it with an in-zone whiff rate of nearly 40% and a chase rate over 33%. So, like, he's dominating them with the secondaries. It really is just a fastball quality thing. And that's why I lean towards low medium, because I don't know if it happens this year, but he's 18. He's going to be 19 and actually day after my birthday, July 18th. Nice. But they can fix this in the off season where you just go, and you can say what you want about the pitching labs and all that stuff, where the pitching labs are fantastic are, hey, I'm not getting enough vert on my fastball, and I'm not really gaining anything from this current release height. Like, if it doesn't affect my body and there's some other natural places I can throw the ball from, like, what would be more advantageous? And you can just sync up to a machine, see where your body goes. And and try to find another release point that might work for you. And we see guys gain vert all the time through the offseason, find some things that work and go from there. I think that's what may ultimately happen with Clemmey. It's hard to teach the changeup and slider quality that he has, and he's throwing those for a strike pretty frequently. So I'll go low, but a little bit higher than some of the other lows, but still low for me.
Got you. Last guy, and again, I'm low. Last guy that we want to talk about is Carson Whisenhunt with San Francisco, and I feel like it's got to be high for you. I know he's 2 years removed at this point. He threw in the futures game last year. I was very excited about him because I thought that changeup was one of the better changeups in the minor leagues. But he's been sitting in AAA, 11 starts, 40 and a third, ERA over 6. He's punching out a ton, 62 Ks, but he's walked 23 at this point. Is he just a PCL victim right now? Like, what's going on here?
I think a little bit of a PCL victim.
Okay.
I do. It's medium, though, because he's another guy where I wonder how he's going to do it consistently at the big league level, because I don't really like any other pitches much besides the changeup. It just helps that the changeup's a clear 70. I think when you're looking at him with the rest of his arsenal, you're in the PCL, your command is fringy. You've got the changeup, right? But then what's your next best pitch? Probably the fastball.
Yeah.
And the fastball is not great. Maybe you could go to the breaking ball. Breaking ball is all right. I would say, if that, I think it's pretty fringy. So he is a bit of a one-trick pony. And that's why he's not been a top 100 guy for us. And I know he's been on other lists. So that's why my concerns maybe a little bit less relative to others. Because I think our view
Your
on him
expectations were lower.
Lower. Yeah. So that's why I'm more of a medium.
Okay.
But if the changeup wasn't performing, I'd be a high. Changeup is performing. 26% swinging strike rate in AAA is pretty absurd. Opponents are hitting below 200 against it. I kind of was always concerned about what else he would be able to do. And I think the fastball at San Francisco, playing in that stadium, he'll be able to get away with a lot more. It's like the polar opposite of the PCL. So if he can keep that in the yard a little bit more, he can be more of the fastball changeup guy. I just think he's limited without the quality breaking ball. And I think we're seeing that kind of be exemplified in the PCL, where it can get exposed even more so. So I'll go medium because, again, I've always kind of been a little bit lower on him, I think.
So I just think my hope was like, hey, he could flash mid-rotation upside. But now I'm just like, yeah, he's a better option than Keaton Wynn. But, you still look at the free agent market for starting pitching. Like, you're not worried about phasing him out at final product, I don't think, which, I don't know. I'm disappointed that I have to, move my goalposts on who I thought he could be. But, that's what prospect world people have to do, right? You come in with lofty expectations and then you adjust.
Yeah. And I still think if he can find a breaking ball, it can really change things, but it just seems like he's still been searching, and until he finds that, I think he's a little bit limited. The last thing I'll say on him, though, is when your fastball has, a ground ball rate of 28%, you're going to get burned in the PCL a lot more. So I think it will work a little bit better. I still think he's got back into the rotation, profile and could be a solid 4. But yeah, I don't know if there's enough there for that middle rotation type.
It's just really hard. And I want to hammer this point home. It's really hard to turn your hand both ways as a pitcher. It's very, very difficult. And the guys that do both are the ones that can flash the front line upside or the mid rotation upside.
1,000,000%. And that's why maybe he can find like a cutter or just some slider that comes a little bit easier. We'll see where he goes from there. But, again, that changeup still playing is always a good sign.
Yeah.
That'll do it for this episode. If you're wondering where Trey Morgan is, he had to reschedule. So we were going to do that. We're going to do that hopefully next week. But he had something come up. So we're going to reschedule with him. Also just too busy hitting like 400 in high A.
And not punching out ever.
And not punching out ever at all times. But looking forward to catching up with him later on. We will definitely still do that. But, just wanted to give you the little update there. We'll probably have that top 100 on Monday. So keep an eye out for that. And then we'll do an episode kind of just flying through the new names and some of the updates. We'll figure out the best way to go about that. And I'm excited to go through all of that. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Reminder that you can subscribe to bonus episodes in the episode description. And if you could leave a rating, help us grow the show, that would be great. Subscribe to the YouTube, social medias, all that good stuff. We also have call-up merch, and it actually is really cool. So if you want to check that out, check out the link in the episode description as well. Thank you as always. We'll talk prospects with you next week.